Hello everyone, welcome to my class today. Today we'll see a new topic in medical surgical one subject, that is disorders of endocrine system. So in disorders of endocrine system, we'll see the first disease condition, diabetes mellitus. So if you are the first time watching my video, kindly like, share, subscribe and click the notification button for further update of my videos. Okay, coming to the definition of diabetes mellitus. So it is a chronic disease, that means it is gradual in onset and it has a long duration, may also further extend for lifelong. Okay, so the disease can continue for lifelong, and when this disease occurs, it can also affect the other organs. So it is a multi-organ system disease, and it is mainly caused by the problems in the insulin. Okay, so insulin is a hormone that is secreted by the pancreas. So if the pancreas is having an injury or the pancreas is destroyed, then the insulin will also get destroyed. So insulin is not produced properly. So when there is insulin destruction and insufficient insulin production, or if there is insulin production but it is not properly doing the function. Okay, so main function of insulin is to transport the glucose from the blood vessels and take it to the tissues for metabolism. Okay, so when the insulin is not doing its function, then there will be imbalance in the glucose metabolism, which will result in increased glucose in the blood. That condition is called as hyperglycemia. So the disease is called as the diabetes mellitus. Okay, so when you see the epidemiology, so it is one of the serious health problem all around the world. So many people are suffering from diabetes mellitus and the incidence is keeping on increasing rapidly. Okay, so every time when the patient is coming to hospital, suddenly you check a blood sugar, patient will be having a most of the patient will have this diabetes mellitus. So the prevalence is increasing, and more than billions of people are affected with diabetes mellitus all over the world, and over millions of people are still not diagnosed. Okay, so they are not unaware that they are having a disease, because diabetes is one of a silent chronic disease, so it may not show the signs and symptoms immediately, and it is one of the leading cause of death in the population. Coming to the types of diabetes mellitus, so there is pre-diabetes. So in pre-diabetes, so the person will have an impaired glucose tolerance. Okay, so impaired glucose tolerance is, so the person will be checking for fasting blood glucose. So the fasting blood glucose will be in between 100 to 125 milligram per deciliter, and after 2 hours again the person's glucose will be checked. This is to identify in 2 hours how much glucose is getting metabolized and it is entering the tissues. Okay, so in these patients, postprandial sugar will be 140 to 199 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so that condition is called as pre-diabetes. So this is not actually diabetes, but this patient are more risk of having diabetes in the future. Okay, so these the patient has to take proper preventive measures in order to prevent the diabetes. And type 1 diabetes mellitus, so it is also called as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, that is IDDM, and it was earlier days it was called as juvenile diabetes mellitus. Okay, because they have a genetic history of getting this diabetes mellitus, so it is called as juvenile diabetes mellitus, and it was more common in children, but nowadays even more than 35 years of age person have this type 1 diabetes mellitus. Okay, here there is problem in the pancreas, that means pancreas is getting destroyed, and because of that insulin is not properly produced, and when insulin is not properly produced, the glucose is not getting metabolized, or it is not able to transport the glucose into the tissues. So the glucose will get building up, or it will rise in the bloodstream, which can result in diabetes mellitus. And next is type 2 diabetes mellitus. It is also called as non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, that is NIDDM, and adult onset diabetes mellitus, and it also has a name called maturity onset diabetes mellitus, because it is most common in the adulthood and adolescent period. And here the problem is there is sufficient insulin is produced, but there is insulin resistance. Okay, insulin resistance means the endogenous insulin, that is the insulin that is produced by the pancreas, is not properly utilized by the tissues, so that the glucose is not getting transported to the tissues, which can result in increased blood glucose levels, that is called as type 2 diabetes mellitus. And next is secondary diabetes mellitus. So here the patient is not actually having diabetes mellitus, but patient is suffering from some other diseases or any condition that is contributing to the diabetes mellitus. Okay, so this can occur due to any medical condition or any drugs which can increase the glucose level. Okay, so when the person disease is treated or the drugs is stopped, the patient may get reversed from the, that is, he may become normal and his diabetes mellitus can be cured. And next is gestational diabetes mellitus. So mostly in pregnancy, the women will suffer from diabetes mellitus in the 24 to 48 weeks of gestation. This is because so many hormones that are produced in the placenta are not allowing the insulin to get properly utilized by the body, so there is more glucose in the blood which can result in pregnancy time diabetes mellitus, that is called as gestational diabetes mellitus. And finally it is juvenile diabetes mellitus. So it is like type 1 diabetes mellitus. So there are some genetic factors in which the pancreas is not properly producing the insulin, or it is not able to control the blood sugar because there is no adequate insulin to control it. That is called as juvenile diabetes mellitus. Okay, and coming to the etiology of diabetes mellitus, so type 1 or it is a juvenile diabetes mellitus. So the more common in 11 to 13 years of age, and this will predispose to juvenile diabetes mellitus. And patient who has lean body weight. Okay, so that is, it is more common in person who are lean than in overweight, and but sometimes it also occurs in overweight person, but more commonly this diabetes mellitus is found in person who have a lean body mass. And genetic factors, so that means if there is some genetic disorder where or a immune problem where there is auto destruction of the pancreas, that is our own body cells are destroying the pancreas, so pancreas is not able to produce the insulin. Okay, and it is also associated with an HLA antigen. Okay, so this antigen will be produced in response to some viral infection. Okay, person who had a viral infection, these antibodies, that is human leukocyte antigens, are produced in those person who have been earlier exposed with some viral infection, and they can destroy the beta cells of pancreas. So when the beta cells of pancreas are destroyed, insulin is not produced. Okay, and also idiopathic cause, that is, there is some reasons the cause is not known where the patient may develop a type 1 diabetes mellitus. Okay, that is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Next is type 2 diabetes mellitus. So it is also called non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. So this is more common in 90% of patient, and this commonly occurs in a person more than 35 years of age. So it is also called as adult onset or a maturity onset diabetes mellitus, and it is more common in obese and overweight persons, and persons who have a family history of diabetes mellitus can, the children also can inherit the type 2 diabetes mellitus. Okay, and next is secondary diabetes mellitus. So gestational diabetes mellitus comes in obstetrics, so it is not dealt in our topic. So the next one is the secondary diabetes mellitus. So this can occur because of any destruction in the pancreas due to any trauma, or any, that is, trauma causing injury to the pancreas, or any surgery where the pancreas is removed or pancreas getting injured, or due to any radiation. In case of cancer, they give radiation therapy where the pancreas is destroyed. Okay, so in all these conditions there is decreased production of insulin. And disease conditions like Cushing syndrome, hyperthyroidism, hemochromatosis, and cystic fibrosis, so these are all some conditions where the body can abnormally produce glucose, and this glucose cannot be, that is the insulin which is produced by the pancreas is not sufficient to control the blood glucose level. So because of that, patient will go for secondary diabetes mellitus. Okay, and next is total parenteral nutrition. So this is a nutrition is given for patients who cannot take the food orally due to some GI diseases or any GI obstruction where the food is not metabolized in the GI tract. We give nutrition directly through an intravenous vein, that is, we put an intravenous line and directly inject the glucose, amino acids, and triglycerides into the patient. So while giving total parenteral nutrition, so we give direct glucose into the blood, and this extra excess glucose cannot be metabolized by the insulin, so at that time patient can go for diabetes mellitus. And some medications like corticosteroids, antipsychotics, thiazides, so these all have side effect of increasing the blood glucose levels, so this can induce the patient to develop diabetes mellitus. Okay, so first, before knowing the pathophysiology of diabetes mellitus, we must know how the normal physiology of the insulin. Okay, so what happens in the insulin metabolism? So insulin is mainly produced by the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans. So islets of Langerhans is a part in the pancreas, so that produces that consists of beta cells which produces the insulin. Okay, so this insulin is continuously produced in a small minor amount, whereas when we take a large meal or a food, this insulin is produced in a large amount like a bolus. Okay, and this insulin helps in binding the glucose from the blood and transporting it to the tissues for metabolism. Okay, and other counter regulatory mechanism also is there, that is when the insulin is taking all the glucose from the blood, the glucose levels in the blood can go abnormally low. Okay, so whenever the low glucose level is there, that time the other counter regulatory hormones like glucagon, epinephrine, growth hormone, so these have opposite function of insulin, that is they will increase the blood glucose level, that is when our body is in need. Okay, like we are fasting for a long time and our body needs glucose, so at that time the blood glucose levels will increase by the help of these hormones. Okay, and these hormones and insulin join together, they regulate and they maintain the blood glucose in the normal range, that is 80 to 120 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so this insulin will promote the glucose transport from the bloodstream across the cell membrane to the cytoplasm of the cell. So as I already said, insulin main function is to transport the glucose from blood and take it to the cells. And insulin has two functions, one is anabolic and storage function. So with these two function, it helps in maintaining the glucose level. So in storage function, so after a meal there will be increased insulin, as I already said, there will be bolus of insulin will be produced, which will convert the glucose to glycogen. Okay, so that is glucose will get converted to glycogen like a process called as glycogenesis, and this glycogen will be stored in the liver, muscles and adipose tissue, and it also inhibits gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is formation of glucose from other nutrients like not only carbohydrates, even proteins and fats can convert to glucose whenever the body is needing a glucose. Okay, so the insulin in storage function, it will convert the glucose to glycogen, and also it will prevent the other nutrients to get converted into glucose, that is called inhibit gluconeogenesis, and enhances, that is increased fat deposition in the form of adipose tissue and protein synthesis. Okay, that is whenever there is increased glucose in the blood, the insulin will help in protecting or preserving the glucose in the form of glycogen or adipose tissue. Somewhere it protects or it stores the glucose. Okay, on the other hand, the anabolic function is whenever there is decreased insulin. Okay, that is in night times the insulin will be produced in a lower amount because we don't take meals. Okay, only when the food is there it will be produced in the large amount. Okay, so when it is produced in a lower amount, it helps in anabolic function, that means the already stored glucose from liver and other muscles, they will get converted into glucose for utilization of the cells. Okay, so this is the normal metabolism. Coming to the pathophysiology, so in type 1 diabetes mellitus, there is any predisposing factors like any exposure to viral infection. So this will trigger production of HLA type antigen. So in diabetes it is HLA, DR3 and DR4. Okay, so these antigen will get triggered, and when these antigen is getting triggered, they produce autoantibodies, that is immune mediated autoantibodies, that is our body will produce our own antibodies, that is T cells or T lymphocytes, they produce own antibodies which will destroy the pancreatic beta cells. Okay, these are beta cell is only where the insulin is produced, so they go and destroy those beta cells. So now the glucose metabolism is not there, that is the glucose from the blood is not able to carry it in the form of glycogen, or they cannot transport to the tissues because lack of insulin is there. So because of that, the blood, in the blood itself there will be more glucose, which is called as hyperglycemia. This occurs in type 1 diabetes mellitus. And next is type 2 diabetes mellitus. So in type 2 diabetes mellitus, it can occur because of 4 factors. So first factor is in muscles. Okay, so in muscles, so mainly the skeletal muscles and fat, liver cells, they have these insulin receptors. So in type 2 diabetes mellitus, these insulin receptors will become unresponsive. It means they do not do their function. That condition is called as insulin resistance. Okay, so when they don't do their function, even if the insulin is produced, it is not able to do the function by taking the glucose into the cells. Okay, so they are not that is it is prevented or stopped. Okay, that is from the blood, glucose is not carried to the cells. So because of that, the blood glucose will keep on increasing. That is called hyperglycemia. So when there is more hyperglycemia, the pancreas will somehow try to produce more and more insulin, but this insulin is not doing their function. So a patient will go, both condition will be there, that is hyperglycemia and hyperinsulinemia. Okay, because pancreas is stimulated and it is producing more insulin. So this happens when the muscles become unresponsive to insulin. And next, when we see in the pancreas, so that is in certain conditions the pancreas is producing less insulin, but the body's need for insulin is more. Okay, that means there is so much glucose in the blood and more insulin is needed in order to carry the glucose and transport to the tissues, but the body is not producing the enough insulin. Okay, so because of that, the excess glucose in the blood is not utilized properly, or there is no sufficient insulin to carry the glucose, which will result in increased glucose in the bloodstream. That is called hyperglycemia, that occurs in the in the pancreas. And next, coming to the liver. So in liver, there is improper regulation of glucose by the liver. Okay, so that means I said the glucose is converted into glycogen and it is stored in the form of glycogen. So this all happens in the liver. Okay, but this regulation is not taking place properly by the liver. Okay, so there is improper regulation of glucose by the liver. That means liver is haphazardly metabolizing. Okay, that means it is not properly storing the glycogen, but there is more and more glucose is produced, and our body is not, that is there is no sufficient insulin to respond to the more glucose that is produced by the liver. So there is accumulation of glucose, which is called as hyperglycemia. Okay, so if the liver also is not functioning properly, then patient can go for type 2 diabetes mellitus. And last is adipose tissue. So in adipose tissue, there are hormones called adipokines, that is adiponectin and leptin. So they also can affect the insulin sensitivity. Okay, that means these adipose hormone, they can prevent the insulin to be sensitive to glucose. That is, whenever there is glucose, the insulin has to function in order to help them to take the glucose to the cells. But here the adipose tissue, adiponectin and leptin, they prevent this insulin sensitivity, so that glucose is not taken by the cells. So patient will go for increased blood sugar, that is called hyperglycemia. So when there is hyperglycemia, we call it as diabetes mellitus. So these two is the pathophysiology that occurs in type 1 and type 2 diabetes mellitus. And next, coming to the clinical manifestation, patient will have polyuria, that is increased urine output, polydipsia, that is increased thirst, polyphagia is increased eating, that is patient feel like eating and always hunger, and patient will have weight loss because glucose is not properly metabolized and it is not taken to the tissues properly, and fatigue and weakness. So because again glucose is needed to provide energy for the tissues, whereas here there is no enough glucose, the patient there is glucose in the blood but is not properly transported to the tissues. So tissues lack glucose, so patient will have fatigue and weakness and insomnia, again sleeplessness because of increased glucose, and the fatigue, weakness, and all those things will not allow the person to sleep. So patient will have insomnia and delayed wound healing, okay, because if there is more glucose in the blood, glucose is good medium for growth of bacteria. So whenever person is having a small wound, also the wound will not heal because the bacteria will grow more and it will cause recurrent infections, okay. So patient who have a diabetes mellitus, they can easily have infections. Okay, next coming to complications of diabetes mellitus. So there are two complications, acute and chronic. So in acute, that is immediate complication is if there is prolonged deficiency of insulin, okay, that means when there is more sugar, that more glucose in the blood, and but the insulin is not sufficient to convert the glucose, okay, that means it is not enough to take the glucose to the tissues, then the person will have hyperglycemia, that is increased glucose. When there is more and more glycemia is there, there will be more production of ketone bodies in the blood, so which is a byproduct of fat metabolism, okay. That means glucose is not taken to the tissues, so our tissues will utilize protein and fat in order to get energy. So when more fat metabolism is there, there will be more production of ketones. So when more production of ketones, they will come and mix in the blood, and the condition called ketosis occurs, okay. And this ketosis will alter the blood pH, okay. So that means normal pH is 7.35 to 7.45, but this ketosis will decrease the blood pH, so patient will go for acidosis, and later these ketone bodies will get destroyed and they will get eliminated through the kidneys, and when ketone bodies are eliminated through kidneys, they will also pull the electrolyte, everything, fluids, everything get eliminated more in urine, and patient will go for extreme dehydration, okay. So this is the immediate complication which can occur because of diabetes mellitus, that is called as diabetic ketoacidosis. And next is hyperosmolar hyperglycemic syndrome, okay. So this is also a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis, so that is there will be life threatening condition. Patient is having severe hyperglycemia where it goes for osmotic diuresis, okay. Osmotic diuresis means the fluid is pushed outside by osmotic pressure, that is glucose is a high molecular weight compound, so this will get escaped in urine through osmotic pressure. The glucose, everything, all the fluids, electrolytes, everything will get escaped in the urine, and patient will have still more severe dehydration which can go to shock, coma, and ultimately death. So it is a very severe condition. And another condition called hypoglycemia, so this is also one life threatening condition if it is not treated properly, because the cerebrum needs glucose for metabolism. If there is no adequate glucose is going to the cells of the brain may die. So hypoglycemia also can occur, that means if the this can occur due to imbalance in the glucose metabolism and increased insulin production, okay. So if there is more and more glucose, the body has to produce more and more insulin in order to bind the glucose, and in one condition the body uncontrollably will keep on producing insulin, which will cause more binding of glucose, and when more glucose is bound, the patient will go to a hypoglycemia, that is decreased blood glucose level, okay. So here in diabetes mellitus, suddenly patient will go hyper or hypoglycemia, so there will be imbalance in the sugar levels. And next coming to chronic complications of diabetes mellitus, so patient will have angiopathy. Angio means blood vessel, pathy is diseases, so it is a disorder of the blood vessel. So when the patient has severe hyperglycemia, the glucose will cause endothelial injury, that is injury to the inside of the blood vessels, which can result in dysfunction of the blood vessels. So it can result in macrovascular, means complications of big blood vessel, that is large blood vessels, and microvascular complication is complication in the small blood vessels, okay. So macrovascular complication, so in hyperglycemia I said there will be endothelial injury, So whenever there is injury in the blood vessels, the platelets, the fibrin deposits, so all those materials, unwanted materials, all those materials will come and migrate in the injured area. So when they migrate in that area, they form like a atherosclerotic plaque. Plaque is some complicated lesion which will block the flow of blood in the blood vessels. So this can occur in anywhere in the cardiovascular, that is in the heart. Cerebrovascular is in the cerebral blood vessels, that is in the brain, and peripheral vascular is any blood vessels that are supplying to abdomen and the extremities. So any of these blood vessels can go for a block, so that is called macrovascular complications. Okay, and also microvascular complication is can occur, that means small arteries can also go for obstruction. So condition called diabetic retinopathy. So here there will be occlusion. Occlusion is obstruction in the small blood vessels of the retina. Retina is in the eye. So this can result, so due to some lesions forming in the blood vessels, that is atherosclerotic lesions, they will obstruct the blood flow to the retina. And diabetic nephropathy is, here occlusion will occur in the small blood vessels that are supplying to the glomerular of the kidney. Okay, so kidneys, glomeruli and the nephrons are main function of filtering the blood and excreting the urine. So when these kidneys are affected, then patient will go for renal disease where the kidney will lose their function. And next is diabetic neuropathy, that is the small cutaneous, that is in the skin, in the peripheral area, there are small cutaneous blood vessels which can get damaged, which can get blocked. When they are blocked, the nerves that are supplying to the extremities and all the skin will also get damaged. So when the nerves are damaged because of lack of blood supply, patient will not have the sensation. Okay, so that is whenever we are touching a hot or something, immediately we know hot and we will remove. Okay, so we will have that sensation, but these persons, when they have the sensory changes, they cannot know it is hot or there won't be pain, etc. So that even if there is a wound or anything, the wound will keep on multiplying, that is keep on increasing. Patient will not have the senses. Okay, this is diabetic neuropathy. And last complication, patient is more prone for infection, because again glucose is a medium for growth of bacteria, and also if there is any even a small scratch, the wound will become very big and there won't be wound healing, because glucose will not allow the wound to heal faster. Okay, so these are the chronic complications of diabetes mellitus. And coming to diagnostic findings, so history and physical examination. So you have to collect the genetic history, that is family history of diabetes mellitus, and also you have to see for the ethnicity, because some Hispanic Americans, all the Western culture, these all the people more prone for getting diabetes mellitus. So you have to see the origin of the person, from where his origin, so we can identify the cause. Okay, and next is you have to see the signs and symptoms of diabetic mellitus, like a patient may have polyuria, dyspnea, sudden weight loss, fatigue, all those things you have to see. And you have to also do a BP and weight monitoring to check if there is any problem in the blood vessel, because patient can go for vascular complication. And fundoscopic examination is to examine the eye. This is to check for any diabetes retinopathy, so it is one of the complication. And also neurological examination to see for diabetic neuropathy. So we have to do the blood test. So in blood test we have to do a random blood glucose. So if it is normal is 80 to 120 milligram per deciliter. If it is more than that, then patient may have diabetes. And fasting blood glucose, that is 65 to 110 milligram per deciliter. So it will be elevated in diabetes. And postprandial blood sugar. So this is checked after patient takes a meal and after 2 hours. Then we have to check this. So it should be normal is 100 to 140 milligram per deciliter. Okay. And glucose tolerance test is done. So here patient will be checked for fasting blood glucose, and then patient will be asked to take a glucose fluid. Okay, so they give a glucose fluid, and again for every 15 to 30 minutes they keep on repeating the glucose test for 2 hours. Okay, so in this we can identify how the glucose is metabolized, if whether it is metabolized properly or not. So to identify that, they do a glucose tolerance test. And glycosylated hemoglobin, so this is the hemoglobin that is bound with the glucose. Okay, so normally it should be less than 6%. So in these in patients with diabetes, this is increased. And also you have to do a urine analysis. So in a urine analysis, if glucose is present, then it is diabetes mellitus. And in the complication cases of diabetic ketoacidosis and hyperosmolar syndrome, patient may have albumin and also acetone excreting through the urine. And ECG echocardiography will be done if the patient is having any cardiovascular disease, to identify that we have to do. And also you can do a CT or MRI to identify if the patient is having any cerebrovascular disease, and also Doppler scans if patient is having a peripheral vascular disease. Okay, this all to identify if the patient is going for complications. Okay, and next is pharmacological management. So mainly we give insulin therapy. So there are so many types of insulin, like rapid acting. So that means the action is very soon, and short acting means the action will be for only 6 to 8 hours, so for a minimal time. And intermediate insulin, acting insulin, so the action will be to 8 to 12 hours, and long acting insulin, the action can be more than 12 hours. And also there is combination therapy. So these are the types of insulin and the combinations of insulin used according to the doctor's order. So these insulin therapy is prescribed for patient. There are also some oral hypoglycemic agents like sulfonylureas, meglitinides, biguanides, alpha glucosidase inhibitors, and thiosylidinones, and dipeptidyl peptidase 4 inhibitors, combination therapy, incretin and amylin analog. Okay, so these are the group of drugs given. So according to the type of diabetes and the measure or range of diabetes the patient is having, the doctors will prescribe these diabetic drugs. And main is nutritional therapy. So in carbohydrates, you have to tell the patient to take low carbohydrate food, because high sugars can increase the diabetes mellitus. So mainly whole grains, brown rice, fruits, vegetables, low fat milk, these all should be included in the diet. And tell the patient to avoid sugars and starch. Okay, starch also have more of sugar, so patient has to avoid these direct sugars and starch in the diet. And protein, so protein should be little lesser than normal person, that is normally 1 gram per kg body weight is given. So you can ask the patient to take 0.8 to 1 gram per kg body weight, and he has to that is we reduce the protein in order to prevent unnecessary stress of kidneys to excrete nitrogen. Okay, so because if there is more nitrogen, it can again cause depression of the brain cells. So in order to prevent extra stress, we have to keep the protein normal or less than normal. So fish, lean meats, beans, legumes, so these are all protein diet which can be included. And you have to tell the patient to avoid red meat, processed and undercooked foods. Okay, so these all should be avoided in diabetes mellitus. And next is fats. So fats, around 25 to 30% of the daily meal should have fats, because fats are the good source of energy. And also the fat content should be less than 200 milligram per day. And also avoid trans fat. Okay, trans fat or saturated fat, so these you have to, that is excess cholesterol fats you have to avoid. And patient can take polyunsaturated fats, so these are all good fats, so you can take like chia seeds, flax seeds, oily fish, walnuts, so these all contains good fats, so patient can take these foods. And avoid all the junk foods, processed and deep fried and oily foods, to reduce the cholesterol in diet. And patient teaching, so as already I said, diet we have to tell the patient to balanced diet. So he has to take 1200 to 1400 kilocalories per day in order to meet the nutrition. So that should be low carbohydrate, non-fat milk, non-starchy vegetables, fresh fruit and adequate protein. This all should be included to complete a meal. And strictly tell the patient to avoid smoking and limitation of alcohol, because nowadays most person are addicted to alcohol. So you cannot tell the, and also there is alcohol withdrawal syndrome. So you cannot tell the patient to completely stop alcohol, but he can limit and gradually slow down and stop the alcohol. And next is exercise program. So you have to teach the patient to start slowly with the exercise. So suddenly patient should not take a vigorous exercise, because it may cause hypoglycemia and sudden collapse. So tell the patient to slowly start the exercise and increase gradually. And exercise should first contain a warm up period. Warm up is just to do a exercise, that is there should not be no vigorous exercise, and a cooling down. Okay, so then little higher exercise should be done, and like when completing the exercise should be very slow. Okay, like a slow walking or something. So like this you have to have a cooling down and a warm up period. And exercise should be always done after meals. That means before meals you should not do exercise, because suddenly the glucose levels are going very low, then patient can collapse. So every time tell the patient to do exercise after meal, so that it will decrease the blood glucose and maintain it in normal in blood. And so when patient is also fasting or is not taking food for a long time, then you have to avoid the exercise. And also teach the patient about self monitoring of blood glucose. So nowadays so many companies are coming with different glucose monitors, so which can be bought by the patient, and you can educate the patient how to self monitor the blood glucose. Tell the patient to practice it before the nurse, and later at home the patient has to do, or any caregiver or the family can assist the patient in checking the glucose. So whenever patient is going for some vigorous exercise program, then he have before and after the exercise you have to check the blood glucose, because if the sugars are low, then the patient should not go to do a vigorous exercise. And also after exercise you have to see whether the sugar has come to the normal levels. Okay, so that you can tell the patient to do glucose monitoring. Other than that, daily for a day patient can do a glucose monitoring. Okay, and then I have to teach self administration of insulin. So again patient will need lifelong insulin. So at home patient will go with an insulin, so you have to teach the patient about what insulin should be bought, and how it should be stored, like in the fridge, and what is the syringe, subcutaneous syringe, what will be the size of the syringe. So everything you have to teach, and also tell the patient to practice the self administration of insulin. Okay, so mainly the sites will be in the abdomen, thigh, and in the that is in the hand. Okay, so that is in the shoulders, lateral aspect of the upper arm. So you have to teach the patient how to rotate the, that means every day you should not give insulin at same place, because it can cause pain and swelling in that area. So he has to rotate the insulin site. So everything you have to teach the patient, and also ask the patient about the fear. So if he is having fear about the injection and pain, so nowadays there are some lanterns company insulin injections are coming. So they are very minor, like it will be like just like an ant bite or some small prick will be there. So like this lesser pain drugs are available, so you can advise the patient to get those lesser pain devices, so that patient can easily use those injections without pain. Okay, other than this you have to teach about hygiene, because patient should have an oral dental and skin hygiene, because patient is more prone for complications of infection. So tell the patient to daily bath, foot care, and all procedure whatever is doing, everything should be done in an aseptic technique, and he has to prevent the infections. And medical identification and travel. So these patients, whenever they are traveling some places, they have to have a medical identification telling I am a diabetic, so that suddenly patient go for a hypoglycemia or a collapse or shock, so the person's immediate blood sugar has to be checked, and thereby you can start the treatment. So every time patient should have an ID card saying that he is a diabetic and what is the drug he is taking. All those medical information should be present with the patient whenever he is planning to travel. And also when he's going for a travel, he has to take all the diabetic kit, that is self monitoring of glucose kit, and injection pump. So whatever drugs is available he is taking, he has to carry the with the patient, because patient can go for severe complications. So this all you have to instruct the patient. And medication compliance. So if even if patient is taking insulin therapy or oral drugs, you have to tell the patient to properly follow the doctor's instructions as advice, in order to prevent complications. Also you have to discuss with the family and caregivers about all the medication, their side effect, their safety issues, everything you have to discuss with the client. Okay, so sorry, discuss with the client and family members. And also when patient is using this insulin syringe, even the discarding of the syringe has to be done properly. Okay, that means the needle has to be burnt before discarding, because it may prick other persons. Okay, so everything you have to teach the person about the side effect and the issues, and also tell the patient regularly to take all the medications as advised. So whenever there is a complications, they have to come for the regular checkup. So all those medication complaints you have to teach the patient. And risk reduction, so patient should have a good foot hair, because even a small crack or small injury, the wound will not heal, the wound will keep on increasing, and at last it may result in a amputation. So you have to tell the person to wear proper sandals or shoes, proper fitting shoes, so that it can prevent injury. And advise client to avoid stressful situations, because stress can again increase the chance of diabetes mellitus. So patient should be comfortable, relaxed in the environment, and he must also have psychological therapy in order to prevent stress. And regular follow-up, so regularly person has to have a checkup in the hospital. Also that time he has to take the glucose monitoring, eye examination, neurological examination, and other checkups as advised by the doctor. Okay, and coming to the surgical management, so mainly in case patient's pancreas is damaged and it is destroyed, then we can do a pancreatic transplantation. So that is, we can transplant the pancreas from some donor who may be a cadaver. And in case patient had an infected wound or any diabetes complications where the wound is infected, then the patient can go for the amputation. So amputation is removal of the affected limb. Okay, so otherwise if the infection keeps on growing more and more, it can also spread to other areas. So to prevent the spreading of other areas, we can amputate the part. Okay, so these are the surgical management. So I hope you would have understood my class. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and also click the notification button for regular updates of my videos. Thank you.